Let's be completely honest with each other for a second. We all love gardening, and there's nothing quite like the taste of a tomato you grew yourself with your own hands. But let's face it, as we get a little older, the garden seems to ask for more than we can sometimes give. The endless weeding, the constant watering, the bending over that makes your back ache, and the never-ending battle with pests that seem to multiply overnight. Sometimes it feels less like a relaxing hobby and more like a demanding second job. And with grocery prices doing what they're doing right now, watching those numbers climb every single week at the checkout line, we need real food security that we can count on. We need calories that are absolutely guaranteed. But what if I told you there's a crop that breaks all the conventional rules of gardening? A plant that actually thrives on neglect instead of constant attention. It doesn't need you to water it regularly. It doesn't need fertilizer or soil amendments. Insects don't eat it, and diseases don't kill it like they do your tomatoes. You plant it just once, one single time, and it feeds you for the rest of your life without asking for anything in return. Today, I'm introducing you to, or maybe reuniting you with, the ultimate survival crop that's been hiding in plain sight. The Native Americans called it the sunroot, and you might know it as the Jerusalem artichoke or the sunchoke. This isn't just another vegetable to add to your garden, folks. This is an insurance policy for your pantry. First things first, let's clear up the name because it's genuinely confusing and misleading. It's not from Jerusalem, and it's definitely not an artichoke in any way. This is actually a native North American sunflower with the scientific name Helianthus tuberosus. It's been in our continent's DNA for thousands of years. When Lewis and Clark were pushing west across uncharted territory and struggling to find reliable food sources, this plant helped keep them alive through difficult times. It's been growing here long before the potato ever arrived from the Andes Mountains. So why don't we see it in every grocery store today? Why did the potato win the popularity contest in American agriculture? The answer is simple: convenience for the commercial food industry. Potatoes are smooth and uniform, so machines can peel them easily and efficiently. The sunchoke is knobby, irregular, darker, and a bit wilder looking. The food industry hates it because it's hard to process mechanically and doesn't fit into standardized equipment. But as a home gardener growing for yourself, that knobby, irregular shape doesn't matter at all. What matters is flavor, nutrition, and resilience. During World War II, when potato crops failed across parts of Europe and starvation loomed, this plant saved thousands of people from dying. It earned its reputation as a reliable famine food when nothing else would grow. But in times of plenty, it's actually considered a gourmet vegetable that costs $4 a pound or more at high-end farmers markets. And the beautiful irony is, you can grow it completely for free in the worst, most neglected corner of your yard that nothing else will thrive in. Let's talk actual numbers here, because this is where it gets absolutely crazy and almost unbelievable. If you plant one potato tuber and you have a really good year, you might get maybe 5 or 6 potatoes back at harvest time. That's considered a decent return. With sunchokes, the math is completely different. You plant one tuber in the spring, give it basically no care whatsoever, and by fall, that single tuber has multiplied into a massive cluster weighing 15 to 20 pounds or more. The return on investment is absolutely exponential compared to almost any other crop you can grow. And here's the best part that makes this plant truly remarkable. It grows vigorously where nothing else will survive. Have a spot in your yard with heavy clay soil that stays wet. Plant sunchokes there. Have sandy soil that dries out completely in just 2 days. Plant sunchokes there too. I've personally seen these things growing like crazy in roadside ditches and abandoned lots where the soil is terrible. They have a root system that goes incredibly deep, mining for water and minerals that other vegetables can't reach. However, I have to give you a very serious warning before you rush out and plant them everywhere. So listen closely to this part. And this plant is an aggressive survivor with a will to live that's almost unstoppable. If you plant it in your raised bed right next to your delicate carrots or lettuce, the sunchoke will win that battle every single time and take over completely. Once you plant it somewhere, It is nearly impossible to get rid of if you change your mind later. Even if you think you dug every single tuber up, if you leave a tiny piece behind, literally the size of a fingernail, it will grow back with full force next year. For me personally, that's not a bug in the system. That's actually a feature I appreciate. It means I literally cannot fail at growing this crop no matter how much I neglect it. But I strongly recommend you do yourself a favor. Give them their own dedicated patch away from your annual vegetables. Maybe plant them along a fence line where you want a natural privacy screen, because these stalks grow 10 feet tall by midsummer. Treat it like a permanent installation, similar to a fruit tree or asparagus bed, because once it's there for good. Now let's address what might be the biggest headache of growing your own food: storage and preservation. We spend countless hours canning tomatoes in the summer heat. We constantly worry about our potatoes rotting in the pantry. We build elaborate root cellars trying to keep the temperature and humidity just right. The sunchoke completely solves this storage problem in the simplest way possible. The best place to store a Jerusalem artichoke is exactly where it grew, right in the dirt. These tubers are incredibly frost-hardy and can handle brutal winter conditions. In fact, they handle temperatures way below freezing without any protection whatsoever. You can leave them in the ground all winter long and they'll be perfectly fine. When you want some for dinner, you don't go to the basement or your root cellar. You just go to the garden with a shovel and dig up what you need. And here's a secret that makes them even better. They actually taste better after they've been exposed to frost. The cold converts the complex starches into simple sugars, making them sweeter and nuttier in flavor. This is absolutely crucial for what gardeners call the hungry gap. You know, that difficult time in March and April when the winter stores are running dangerously low, but the spring garden hasn't produced anything yet? That's exactly when the sunchoke shines brightest. It provides fresh food when literally nothing else is available from your garden. Just make sure to harvest what you need before they start actively sprouting in late spring, because once they start growing again, they'll be putting energy into shoots instead of storing it in the tubers. Now we need to have an honest talk about physiology and how this vegetable affects your body, because this is important information. For those of us over 50, we start watching our blood sugar levels more carefully. Regular potatoes are pure starch, and they spike your glucose levels significantly after you eat them. Sunchokes are completely different in how they store energy. They don't store it as starch like potatoes do. They store it as something called inulin, spelled I-N-U-L-I-N, which is different from the hormone insulin. Inulin is a prebiotic fiber that passes through your stomach completely undigested and goes straight to your lower gut, where it feeds the beneficial bacteria living there. It barely impacts your blood sugar at all, making it a genuine superfood for diabetics and anyone watching their glucose levels. But I need to be completely honest with you. There is a catch that we have to address like adults, because it feeds the bacteria in your gut so effectively those bacteria become very active in processing this food. If you aren't used to eating sunchokes, they can cause what we might politely call significant digestive activity. Some people have even nicknamed them fartichokes because of this effect. And while that's a bit crude, it's not entirely inaccurate for first-time eaters, but please don't let that scare you off completely, because there are several simple ways to minimize or eliminate this problem. The Native Americans knew these tricks centuries ago, and modern cooks know them too. The key is to process that inulin before you eat it using heat, acid, or fermentation. For example, if you cook them long and slow, like a slow roast at low temperature, that extended heat exposure breaks down the inulin gradually over time. Another effective trick is using acid during cooking. When you boil them, try adding a generous splash of lemon juice or vinegar to the water. That acidity helps hydrolyze the inulin into simpler fructose, which is much easier on your digestive system. But if you want the absolute gold standard method that's healthiest and easiest to digest, you should ferment them just like you would cabbage for sauerkraut. The fermentation process does all the digestion work for you ahead of time, so you get all the satisfying crunch and complex flavor with none of the uncomfortable side effects afterwards. It's honestly the healthiest way to eat them, hands down. So what do they actually taste like when you eat them? Raw, they're crunchy and crisp with a refreshing texture similar to a water chestnut or a jicama. They're fantastic, sliced very thin and tossed into fresh salads for added crunch. But when they're cooked properly, they transform completely. They take on a texture similar to a potato, but with a distinctly sweet, nutty, almost artichoke-like flavor that's really quite unique. My personal favorite way to use them is in a mash combined with regular potatoes. If you want to cut the carbohydrates in your traditional mashed potatoes while adding more flavor, try going 50-50, half potatoes, half sunchokes. You get a much richer, more complex flavor, significantly fewer carbs, and a creamier texture that's absolutely delicious. And here's the best part for lazy cooks like me. You don't even need to peel them at all. The skin is thin and nutritious, so there's no reason to remove it. Just scrub them thoroughly with a brush under running water, chop them up into chunks, and roast them with olive oil, fresh rosemary, salt, and pepper until they're golden brown and caramelized. It's absolutely delicious and incredibly simple. We live in interesting times, don't we? The world feels a bit faster, a bit more expensive, and a bit more fragile than it used to be when we were younger. Planting Jerusalem artichokes in your garden is honestly a declaration of independence from a fragile food system. It's knowing deep down that no matter what happens to the grocery supply chain, no matter if you hurt your back and can't weed your garden for a month, no matter what crisis comes, you have reliable calories waiting for you in the earth ready to harvest. It's zero maintenance after the first year. It's incredibly high yield compared to the effort required. And it's absolutely delicious if you learn to cook it right. So here's what I want you to do. Find a corner of your property that you've been neglecting because nothing seems to grow well there. Put some tubers in the ground this coming spring and just let them do their thing, and thank me next winter when you're digging up fresh vegetables while there's snow on the ground. If you've grown these sun roots before and have experience with them, let me know in the comments. How do you handle the cooking to avoid digestive issues? I genuinely love to hear your recipes and techniques. Don't forget to subscribe for more practical gardening tips that actually work in the real world. Stay self-reliant, folks, and I'll see you in the next video.